we want to know how the body functions, and therefore testing is very important. The main ingredient the body survives on, or in fact the only ingredients, are what is listed here. And just to give you some idea of testing in other areas, like for example, oxygen consumption. Now, this testing is done in the laboratory. It's quite complicated. It cannot be easily available to the average person. However, many of you will know that they have what is called an oximeter, where you fix to the tip of your finger and it'll show your pulse rate and the oxygen level in the blood. Now, the oxygen level shown in the oximeter is not a measure of how much oxygen your cell is using. It is the amount of oxygen that is present in the bloodstream. So some measurement, but not entirely detailed to let you know how much you're using. Now, there's a bit of a paradox here. The average is about 93 to 97. Now, can you hit 100%? Now, when somebody shows 100% of oxygen, we get worried because that person must be breathing hard. Now, if someone is breathing hard while just sitting down, it must be soon after an exercise, or the person is going into heart failure. So even though oxygen consumption is very basic, accurate measurement in a clinic setting, not a university setting, accurate measurement is difficult. Water consumption, same thing. Just a tip here, we need clean, adequate amounts of water for the body, for the trillions of reactions. How can we achieve a water replacement or oil change for the car? How do we do a water replacement? If you drink about a minimum of 2 liters for at least 3 days, for 3 weeks, all the water in your body has been replaced with new water. Okay, just a bit of information there. Now, testing for sleep. Now they have very informative watches which you can wear, and they'll record your sleep pattern to show you how much you have gone into deep sleep and so on. Activity and exercise, of course, there is a coach or somebody to measure. But the most complicated part is the food. How to measure the food that you are taking and what you get out of it. For that, we have to look at body testing. Now, some of the simple measurements are now available in all the gymnasium. Not just your height and weight, but they can break it down into how much of it is body fat, muscle, bone, and how much water do you have in your system. Now, when it comes to laboratory testing available for people in the market, it started off with only testing for people who were sick. However, to develop the measurement to know that you are sick, they had to be familiar with people who are normal. But somehow those tests were not available till the last 40 years or so. People started testing normal people who are not sick to see whether they are in the safe range. Okay. Now, with this increasing use of laboratory testing, cost has come down because the more tests you do, the industry can churn out raw material or electronic equipment in larger amounts, and they can reduce the price. And so improved technology has now resulted in many tests that are available over the last 20 years, which were available only in university settings 30, 40 years ago. Now, when we talk about laboratory testing for the human being, just to find out how healthy they are or near illness or already abnormal, These are the things that we can check. Now, I put stools at the top because this was one of the oldest testing. They could estimate the calories and the nutrient of the food that you take. And when they analyze the stools, what is found there, any nutrient, is the one that was not absorbed. So they can actually tell you how much you have taken, nutrition, calories, and so on. And from the stools, they can say how much the body has used. There are some conditions of the digestive system where it does not absorb all that you eat. That is a very first testing, a bit messy, as you can see. Okay, so they try to develop the other areas. Urine is today still used, though it is limited. It is a very good measurement, particularly in heavy metal toxicity. If somebody is treated for, let's say, lead poisoning, and they are giving some medication either by a drip or orally, we'd like to know whether the lead is coming out. If it is coming out, how much is coming out? So urine tests today are used routinely for that. Of course, they are also used for some basic things like infection of the urine, early kidney disease, and so on and so forth. Okay, blood. This is the one that has been most extensively used, and we'll talk more about that. And you know what? Even sweat has been used to test. Now, it's again a little bit messy, less messy than stools, and less informative. From tests, we can only find out very few things. For example, uric acid. When you sweat, you also excrete uric acid. Anything else, we'll have to do it under university conditions because they have to go for real micro tests. So everything, or rather most of it now, has come around to the blood. Blood gives you the most information compared to the others. Now, how can we mirror the actual content of our body cells? That is what we are aiming for at the end of the day. Can we get a picture that is closest to the content? When we say content, both the nutritional content, the hormonal content, and all that, okay? Now, blood test results vary throughout the day for certain parameters. Take growth hormone, for example. You have two major periods where the growth hormone is secreted. One is somewhere between 11 p.m. to about 2 to 3 a.m. That's the time you get the biggest spike in the secretion of growth hormone from the pituitary gland. So those of you who sleep late, please take note. You are going to miss out quite a bit of growth hormone, which is not only growth for children, but in older folks, it's a great hormone for repair while you're resting. Okay, so the second spike occurs in the afternoon, about 2 to 3 p.m. That is why it is ideal if you can take a short nap in the afternoon, maybe 20 minutes or so. Now, most of us working in the modern world, we are not in a position to take a nap like that. But this was the practice or the habit in rural societies not very long ago. Okay, so when you do a blood test to check for growth hormone, you need to test it either at night or in the afternoon. At other times, the level will be low because after the secretion into the bloodstream, the body cells start picking it up. So as time goes on, it will be less. So blood test result may vary throughout the day. Not all things, but some important things do. Okay. So because it varies, it may not reflect the actual state of the cell. Okay. Not only growth hormone, let's say vitamins. Vitamins, you take some food or some supplements, you absorb the vitamins, it's in the bloodstream. After a while, the cells take it up, and therefore, if you check for vitamins in the liquid part of the blood, it may not reflect what is in the cell. To get the exact situation of the cell, we have to do what is called biopsy. Biopsy is actually taking out part of the tissue from the body. Now, obviously, we can't take out bits of tissue from the body just to check what the nutritional status is like. Once in a while, it's done in hospital to make a diagnosis of rare diseases. Okay, so what do we do? How do we get to assess the cellular status? Now, we are lucky in the sense there is a tissue which best represents the cell component, and that is the red blood cell. We have our blood is about 5 to 5.5 liters. 45% of that is solid, 55% is liquid. The solid part has 20 to 30 trillion red blood cells. That's a huge number. What I find continuously difficult to believe is that the body can produce almost 2.5 million new red blood cells every second. That's amazing. Everything must be lined up in such a way to be ready so that within a second, pop, 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 it comes out, you know. Now, this is a very good cell to capture and measure. And red blood cell from the blood flow is quite easy to take out. We have all the modern methods where we can take it out with minimal discomfort. We can do it for the red blood cell because the numbers are so high, and the 5 liters, 5.5 liters of blood circulate throughout the body every minute. So it is quite representative of the cells in the body. Now, we also have white blood cells, but the white blood cell is only 1% of when you include the red blood cell, much less. So the red blood cell would be a better representation. We are told that we have anything between 37 to 50 trillion cells, and the red blood cell alone contributes 70% of the cells in the body. There are some estimates that will go even higher. I've taken the more conservative number. Now, since it moves around the whole body every minute at rest, if you're working physically, you're doing exercises, it's even faster. On top of that, it is also replaced every 120 days or so. The average lifespan of a red blood cell is 4 months. Now, it doesn't mean that it stays in the system for 119 days, and 120th day, there is a change. That's the average number. You know, in the production of the red blood cell, the 2.4 million every second, some cells are produced well, assembled well, some not so well. So the turnover for the cells that are not that great will be less, maybe 90 days, 100 days, that's about 3 months. Some of the good cells may last a little longer, maybe 130 or 40 days. Average is 120 days, and that's 4 months. And most people in this part of the world, they don't like to wait 4 months to do a test. Usually, they want to do it in 2 to 3 months. 3 months is reasonable. 2 months may be a little early, okay? Now, because this is a good representation of the cell content, the nutrition that has been adopted into the cell, integrated into the structure, it's a good measure, and we can measure quite a bit. Unfortunately, it is still extremely expensive for most of the tests. Some are available, and we'll get into that soon. Before that, just to give you an idea, this is a red blood cell. it looks like a donut. Though the center portion, there's no hole, but it's thinner than the portion that is in the periphery. Okay, so it's almost like a donut, and here you see a lot of them. Why is it in this shape? The center is thinner so that it can actually squeeze itself to go through small blood vessels like capillaries. So the circulation is easier. In a larger vessel, it can flow without having to flex or reduce or contort its shape. But when it goes through a small vessel, it needs this kind of a structure to be more pliable. Okay, so here is the red blood cell, and in the red blood cell, the inside of it, what we call the cytoplasm, is again a little changing. What is more permanent is the red blood cell membrane, which is very stable, extremely tough, at the same flexible, and is the most consistent part of the red blood cell. Red blood cell itself is quite consistent, but the membrane is even more consistent. So if we have electronic methods of testing it, that would be ideal. We do have it. Unfortunately, as I said earlier, it's rather expensive and it's not available all over the world. However, some tests are a little cheaper. Like, for example, testing of sugar, your level of sugar, what it has been on an average over the last 3 months is called HbA1c. This test is available in all the labs, and in Malaysia, it costs about 30 ringgit just for that test, which is quite reasonable. This test was not available, say, 15, 20 years ago. Okay. That test, they check the amount of effect sugar has had on the proteins in the red blood cell membrane, and they can give you an assessment of whether your blood sugar, for diabetics, whether the blood sugar has been under control over the previous 3 months or so. So for our purposes here, we want to know how much fatty acids are in the red blood cell. Most of it, in fact, all of it is focused in the red blood cell membrane, and it contains all the 3 types of fatty acid: saturated, unsaturated, monounsaturated. These are biochemical classifications of the different fatty acids. We need all 3 of them. Unfortunately, in modern times, we are low in 2 of the unsaturated fatty acids, or sorry, not 2 fatty acids that we need to take in the diet: omega-3 and 6. And omega-6 is plentiful in our diet. The cooking oil is mainly omega-6, and we overconsume this. So what happens is there is an imbalance, and this will cause inflammation in the body. And the whole idea of testing is we want to find out whether we are balanced or not. Now, fortunately, we don't have to withdraw the blood from the vein. Many tests, we have to withdraw the blood, which means you have to poke right at the vein here in the arm here, okay? But with this one, what you need to do is just a pinprick at the tip of your finger, get 2 drops, and that's enough. Why? Because we are interested only in the red blood cell. So when we puncture our finger, the 1 or 2 drops is more than enough. You're already getting millions of cells, red blood cells. That is adequate for this testing. Now, this test, the dry blood spot test offered by Zinzino, tests the fatty acids in the red blood cell membrane. And we just don't test omega-3, which is what we are looking for, but it also give you a report of all the three. Saturated fatty acid, there are two types in this. Unsaturated fatty acids, that will be the omega-6, omega-3. Omega-6 is actually a family of 4. Omega-3 is family of 4. So unsaturated fatty acids, there will be at least 8 reports. Monounsaturated is omega-9, which is 1. So 8 plus 2, 10, plus this 1, 11 different fatty acids. And they make up most of the fatty acids in the blood. Okay. Now, somebody asked me whether triglycerides, cholesterol are included. No, they are fats, different type of fats, and they move around in the liquid part of the blood. Okay, so they are not tested. Okay, right now, this kind of a fatty acid test from the membrane by electronic means is the most accurate up till now. Okay. Now, to achieve this good balance, here is a little bit of a advertisement. Zinzino offers a product which gives you omega-3. This omega-3 is to balance along with omega-6 that you're taking. And that's why it's called balance oil. Now, we also make the product more worthwhile because we give you a very high dose of the important ingredient of omega-3, the EPA and the DHA. And in addition to that, we also provide vitamin D3. Vitamin D3 is the one that is utilized by the body for very many functions. So vitamin D3, and what Zinzino has done is added a group of antioxidants from the polyphenol group extracted from extra virgin olive oil. The mixture is a proprietary blend, okay, and it has been very effective. Over the last 9 years it's been in the market, the success rate of elevating the omega-3 in the red blood cell membrane, which means the whole body, is something like 97%. As Vincent mentioned earlier, for Zinzino alone, the lab that tests this, by the way, the lab is in Norway. It's a very specialized lab. It doesn't belong to Zinzino. It's an independent lab, has tested more than 900,000 tests for Zinzino alone. Obviously, they have done more than 1 million tests when they include other clients. And they keep in touch with the latest research. In fact, the lab itself is located in a university campus where there's a lot of research work goes on, and they keep in touch with these people. Okay. Now, coming to the real test, the blood, we call it dry blood spot because just 2 drops on a filter paper, specially provided, and very soon the liquid, even the small liquid part that comes from the blood, is absorbed. Only the red blood cells remain. After a 10-minute drying process, it is packaged appropriately and sent by the home office or by yourself, depending on the country, to the lab in Norway. And they provide very detailed results and also some estimates. The most important thing is the very first thing they want to let you know whether the omega-6 and 3 you are balanced or not. There's a sample result which shows that this person has a ratio of omega-6 37.3 and omega-3 is 1. Ideal would be 3:1. So this person is really out. Okay, 37.3. Now, the results are also reported in such a way that we give 3 colors so that it is easier to, it stands out. Red is really bad. Orange is inadequate. And we also have green, which says that, yes, you are where you should be. Okay, so red means you're really out. Now, the first results would be this one. This will stare at you first, okay? Now, you will notice that there are other smaller results here. Now, these are because they work with research universities in that area, and they give you the best algorithms possible. Like this one, your protection value. In other words, this is talking about the immune system. For this particular person, the contribution to his immune system by omega-3 is 0. It doesn't mean the immune system isn't working. Let me remind you, the immune system depends on protein, vitamins, enough sleep, and so on. One of the ingredients that support immune system is omega-3. Contribution by omega-3 is nothing. Okay, so this is an area that this person can improve. Cell membrane fluidity. I mentioned to you about how flexible the red blood cell membrane is. It has to go through very small blood vessels, so it has to be flexible. That flexibility requires enough omega-3. Okay, now in this person, it's insufficient. Okay, this kind of algorithms can only be worked out with clinical correlation, and that you can obtain only from research facilities. Now, again, mental strength. Now, here, insufficient. It doesn't mean this person is not that smart. No. For mental strength, it requires many factors. Omega-3 is a factor that supports the structure of the nerves, which in turn can support your mental strength. So here is a reflection of the contribution by omega-3, which is insufficient. Okay, omega-3 index is a measurement where the total amount is read and compared. Okay, now the way we measure things and give you this estimate is a little different from other labs. Okay, I'll give you just one example. Omega-6, omega-3. We do not measure all of omega-6, all of omega-3. Remember, I mentioned 4 in the family of 6, 4 in the family of 3. What we measure is the most important of the 4 in the omega-6, the most important of the 4 in omega-3, and make the comparison. Okay, that comparison gives a more true picture, which is related to the inflammation in the body. If you take the whole family and the whole family here and you compare, it will not reflect that. Okay. Now, for some people, this may be a little bit difficult because we do this test for anyone, and for them to understand, there are bar diagrams. Omega-3 balance, 37.3. Here, 37.3. So in this bar, and there are several bars, green is where you should be. Yellow, well, you're just neither here nor there, inadequate. Red, no, you're really down. And in the red, we want to know roughly where you are. So there is an arrow to show where you stand. For example, the protection value is right. So comparatively speaking, this is a worse off situation than this. There's so much more distance to go, whereas here a bit less. So it gives a person immediately a picture of where they stand. And this is for every bit of the 6 parameters that we are showing, like omega-3 index, your mental strength, and cell membrane flexibility or fluidity. Now, I'm going to explain this part. Here is one bar which is quite different. If you notice this, you have red here and red here also. The other bars, you don't have that. Why is that? I mentioned earlier that when we measure omega-6 to 3 for the ratio, we measure only one of the family members of omega-6 and one from omega-3. Now, from omega-6, this is the only family member we measure, arachidonic acid. This is the one that provides the most inflammation. We require inflammation. It is important that we are able to mount an inflammatory response to any foreign body, bacteria or whatever. So we need the inflammation. If it is too much, then the inflammation starts affecting our cells. And that's why there is a danger zone with too little, danger zone with too much. You need to be right in the center, arachidonic acid. Now, this is what is called a qualitative assessment here. And those of you who would like to know the exact figures, here we have. Now, saturated fat, two types. Monounsaturated fat or omega-9, one type. And omega-6, omega-3. So these two frames show the other 11, 4, 8, and 11. Okay, let me show this. Here there are 4 columns, and the newer results, we have taken off one column because people get a little bit confused. So let's forget about the third one. The first one, where you are supposed to be. Second one is where you are now currently. Okay, very straightforward. First one is the ideal place. Second column is where you are. And this shows the difference in percentage, not amount, because we need this kind of a highlight. For example, this was more confusing, but sometimes to explain this is more useful. Like you see, alpha-linolenic acid under omega-3. Where you should be, where you are, the difference is only 0.04 something. Sorry, 0.4, okay? But the amount you need is very little. And the difference is very little, but the percentage difference is you are less by 76.9%. In other words, it's a major deficiency. So they've taken off this column to be less confusion. Okay, where you should be, where you are, and the difference is minus 76.9%. That means lacking. Okay, that's how you read this. So we have 2 parts. This is the quantitative part, the exact quantity that you are supposed to have, and the others more qualitative. Okay, more qualitative. Then we come to the part where you are retesting. This will be your first test. This will be your second test. So when you product, you test it 3 to 4 months later, you want to know how it compares with the first one, and we provide you with this kind of a report. Test, second test. The first one has given you this kind of a frame. The second one comes with a simplified one, easier. Okay, so you can compare the progress that you're making, whether you are making progress, and how fast you are making, whether you have arrived at your target value. All that you can compare by seeing the first and the second test. And of course, you go on to do a third one much later. So dry blood spot results provide currently the most reliable information of your fatty acid status. And therefore, the impact on your immune system, nerves, cellular signaling. You see, if your red blood cell membrane is good, probably other cellular membranes are okay. And the contact between the cells, the way they communicate with each other, can affect our health a lot, right down to the formation of cancer. Cellular signaling is very important. Okay. Of course, the basic thing is it shows balance of 3 and 6 with the best clinical correlation. No point giving you a value which does not correlate with your actual clinical presentation. Okay. So let me just highlight this. You may be on some other product, get tested, know where you stand, and then take our product and test it 3 to 4 months later. Okay, I'm going to stop here. Let's see, any questions that you have?